Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the ScreenBeam live event. We will start in the next 2 minutes at the top of the hour. Thank you for joining. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the ScreenBeam webcast. We will start in the next couple of minutes, just waiting everybody to join the webinar. If anyone has trouble joining, please send us a quick email. We can resend you the link. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the ScreenBeam webcast. We will start in the next 1-2 minutes, just making sure everybody can join using the invite and the link. Thanks for the wait. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining our webcast, the new ScreenBeam. We will start in the next minute or so, just waiting for a few more people to join. Thanks for the wait. All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks everybody for joining. Welcome to the new ScreenBeam webcast. This is our EMEA event. We are very happy to welcome you for that webcast. Today's webcast will be presented by our Brett Roloff that you might already know. We also have the whole EMEA team on the line here to welcome you and to answer all your questions. The duration of this event is roughly 30 minutes. Feel free to ask questions whenever you want. You have that Q&A chat available in Teams. We will answer your question either answering back, texting you, or we can even, for some question, we will stop at the end of the slides and get back to you verbally. So feel free to ask as many questions you like and sit back and relax.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is Brett Roloff, and I am very pleased to have you join us this morning as we discuss this new and strange world that we're in and how we can help. As we go through this information, it is very much, I realize I'm presenting to you, but we're very interested in having a dialogue as well. So feel free to pop your questions or comments into the message queue, and we'll respond as best we can. And as David said, some of those we'll go through live. But let's go ahead and get started in this discussion on transitioning back into the office and coming up with safer and smarter meeting spaces with ScreenBeam. All right, so meeting spaces will be used, and they are critical for collaboration and innovation. I mean, because granted, we're hopefully coming to the end of the pandemic, at least here in Europe. But it's important to note that at some point people are going to go back to work. And many organizations may stay at home, but a lot will return to work. So if you look at some of these quotes, the first one here, Stanford News, face-to-face meetings are essential for developing new ideas and keeping staff motivated and focused. And Forbes also said organizations will have a new appreciation for the importance of the office, the critical nature of face-to-face interactions, and the ways their workplaces must support employees. And my favorite here is from Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO. Switching from offices before the pandemic to an all-remote setup would be replacing one dogma with another dogma. What I miss is when you walk into a physical meeting, you're able to talk and connect with people before and after the meeting. That's tough to replicate virtually, as are other soft skills crucial to managing and mentoring. And Satya is absolutely right. I mean, I understand that the risks of what we've been dealing with the COVID situation, but the truth is people oftentimes need to be face-to-face. And we've managed to do amazing things virtually using technologies like Zoom and Teams. But at the end of the day, those face-to-face meetings are still going to be important. But how do we engineer that in a way that makes organizations and their employees comfortable? And those are some of the challenges that we're going to be facing. So let's look at some of the changes. Ensuring social distancing in common work areas, minimizing touch points by implementing contactless technologies, converting non-traditional spaces into safe meeting spaces, and using other tools like digital signage to kind of communicate and push information around. So we're going to have to kind of rethink. And the truth is, nobody really knows what's going to stick and what isn't. You know, it may be that we do remove half of the chairs from meeting rooms, or we come up with some other scenario where you know the person speaking speaks and the rest wear masks, or we just don't know. So we'll all be figuring these out as we move along, but there are some things that you can do to basically deal with either your customers or your own meeting room environments that can help mitigate some of the issues. So removing 50% of the chairs can help provide some social distancing, but what about touch? That's a problem, right? Because, you know, if you have a situation where people are taking turns presenting, then they're swapping in and out of the presenter chair. They're grabbing the same cables, they're fumbling with adapters or dongles or whatever, and you have a situation where multiple people are having the same touch points throughout the day. So implementing a good wireless display solution that's free of all that minimizes the contact footprint within that meeting room. So it's just one extra step. And that's something that, you know, that customers, end users, employees, etc., all appreciate, because it shows you're thinking. It shows you're thinking about how to utilize that space in a different way that makes them feel more safe and secure. Another one that's important that we're starting to see make an impact is stand-up meetings. Now, stand-up meetings are great because they're typically short. People will stand for a while, but at some point they start to curtail meetings and etc. So without chairs, people are more concise in their communication. Shorter meetings can drive focus rather than have you chase a bunch of unnecessary, you know, tangential debates and things like that. So the context of returning to work or school, for that matter, in some cases, does create social distancing. Now, I realize in this photograph they're not really socially distancing, but we couldn't fit them all in frame. So this makes it easy to facilitate collaboration while providing space for people to spread out. So if you do have a wireless display technology, you don't have a person with a device tethered to the screen. They can stand anywhere. If you need to spread out as more people come, you can certainly do that. So having that wireless display technology is key. Additionally, if you see where those displays are, that's a common area where when people aren't meeting, you can leverage that space to push valuable information out through digital signage, which is also something that's important to talk about. Leveraging those displays in areas around the office allow you to communicate effectively critical information, policies, message of the day, whatever you like. So you can drive awareness of social distancing if that's something that's important as a reminder to employees. There's all sorts of things that you can do. So when you get rid of the cable, you free up the environment you have to meet in to figure out, well, how are people going to congregate? How are they going to congregate in a distancing environment? And basically you can configure the meeting space in a way that makes sense for that, where you don't have to worry about tethering on a big conference table. You don't have to worry about tethering to a podium. People are free to communicate and interact in ways that they feel comfortable with. Now, as you speak to customers or your end users within your organization, for instance, you want to come up with solutions that are relevant to them now. Okay. Even before COVID came along, there was a trend to simplify spaces and improve efficiency. But what customers aren't looking for right now is this. They want a clear, immediate, concise plan that's tailored to whatever their workspace is. Like I've dealt with a lot of companies. I know some companies they're all trying different things. Some are alternating work days in the office. Others are shutting down communal areas like break rooms. Still others are segregating bathrooms by areas of the building. I mean, there are all these things that are figuring in, as well as the meeting rooms. So coming up with basically a bespoke solution that's simple and easy for them to follow is really going to be important. But one of the chief components, any way you look at it, one of the chief components is going to be low risk contactless technology. And that's where ScreenBeam fits in. This is our piece of the puzzle in providing a comfortable work environment for those meeting spaces, is essentially eliminating the contact with the dongles, cables, adapters, remote control switches, etc. The only device that the user touches is their own. So you can turn that environment into a lower risk environment by eliminating those touch points. In communal areas, you can set up areas for stand-up meetings and turn those non-traditional spaces into meeting spaces, because again, you don't have the need for the tether, so you don't have to have a place to put the device, which means you can stand or be anywhere you want to and communicate. And again, digital signage across those displays is also a key component to minimizing contact and enabling social distancing. And all of that is served by our ScreenBeam 1100 Plus. Now, this is our new product. It's not available yet. We will be releasing it at I believe it's the end of August is when the earliest we will be able to have this for you. But this is the follow-up to our existing 1100, which is a product that's seen a lot of positive reaction, widespread use. We've seen a lot of companies adopt our ScreenBeam 1100 technology. And this device is just the next evolution of that. Now, there are a couple of things that differentiate it from the 1100, which I'll go into. But if you're not super familiar with our technology, I'd like to go over what makes ScreenBeam a great solution. And chief, first and foremost, is the fact that we don't require apps and we don't require dongles. So if you have an environment, and we see this a lot, where an organization has a front-facing meeting room, where it's essentially a meeting room in front of the security wall, where guests will come in frequently and give presentations, etc. This is a great solution because you don't have to do anything. If the ScreenBeam is in the room, anybody can rock up with whatever device they want, and within a few short clicks, be presenting. So in doing that, we support Windows 10, we support Mac OS, we support iOS, we support Android, and we support Chromebook. So essentially everybody can come in with whatever device they happen to have, anything from an iPhone to a laptop, and just present. Additionally, you don't need any dongles to do this. So there's no preparation that needs to happen. The person just comes in and connects. If it's Android or Miracast, or sorry, Android or Windows, they connect via Miracast. If it's Mac OS or iOS, they would connect via AirPlay. And if it's Chromebook, they would connect through Chromecast. So all of those are part of the operating system that they have with them. So they're already bringing all the tools they need to connect to ScreenBeam. So on top of that, we have a couple of other features that I'd like to point out that are not only in the 1100 Plus, but they're actually also in the 1100. Like, for instance, full support for HTTP protected content. So if you are broadcasting something that is protected content, it will show up on the screen up to 4K output. We actually do support 4K output very well. We do have dual Wi-Fi radios and an Ethernet port in this, and I'll explain why that's important in a little bit. But it's ways in which you can set up connectivity to not only provide wireless display, but also through connectivity to the internet, or in another case, remote management. That's another feature I'll be talking about. Ghost inking is something new we've added, which I'll talk about on the next slide, and a lower profile. And this is something that great feedback that we got, where this product is probably about, oh, I want to say 40% thinner than the 1100. So we've done a lot to compress the hardware inside the technology to allow you to fit it behind displays or in tighter spaces. All right, so let's take a deeper look at this, and this is where it comes from. Our enterprise customers requested essentially a single box solution. Okay, they don't want to daisy chain multiple devices to achieve this goal. They want it to be easy to use for guests and employees, the ability to operate in dense Wi-Fi environments, and this is actually something that a lot of people don't think about. Is they don't think about the existing Wi-Fi noise in the environment and how that would affect wireless display transmission. I mean, realistically, if you have a lot of Wi-Fi noise, it translates to you as slow internet, but for video, it's a killer. So it's important to be able to have the tools to manage that. Enterprise-grade security manageability is also important, and high performance. So this is our solution, and this is where as I said, many of these things work in the 1100. I'll touch on a couple that are different. Cross-platform is incredibly important. HDMI input, this is new. This is new to the 1100. We now have an HDMI in, and I'll cover why that's important a little bit. 4K support, this one's low profile in comparison to the 1100. We have true multi-network, and this is something that is really key, because in many environments, you may have an infrastructure network, but you may also have a guest wireless, for instance, for people that are coming in that need connectivity that aren't necessarily part of your organization. That's important to have. Multi-view, so you can show up to 4 devices on one display. Quick switch mode, so you can, assuming everyone behaves themselves, you can basically leapfrog one over the other in terms of who's presenting. So the next person can just connect on and bump the previous person off if you so choose. AGO Mirrorcast, really key, because what this means is we allow you to choose the channel that the ScreenBeam operates on. In most every other solution out there, they just travel along the same path as your internet signal, or your existing Wi-Fi channel, I should say. I don't know why you'd want to do that. We allow you, let's say, for instance, your entire organization's on channel 11. You can put ScreenBeam at channel 136. So it's well into the 5 gigahertz range and well clear of whatever interference you may get. Very key thing to look for when you're doing deployment is how it will be affected by the existing EM noise. Digital signage, being able to stream HTML5 content, including rich full motion video from a central web page, for instance, you can do that in ScreenBeam. Custom security options. We are very, very robust in our security scenarios. We're used in very high-tech organizations. We're used in defense contractors, banks, automotive, petrochemical. We're in a lot of places that have done the homework and essentially found that we are extremely secure for their needs. And finally, remote management, which is something I'll also get to a little bit later. Now, connecting is simple, as I mentioned. Our whole design focus throughout all of our development of ScreenBeam has been as simple as possible. If we can add more features, great, but simple is better. Because honestly, if it's a complicated scenario, it doesn't matter how many features you have, people aren't going to use it. So in this case, connecting is very simple. And the great thing is it doesn't really require retraining. If they're already using Windows 10, the tools are in there. They go to connect in the Action Center, or they hit Windows key K. They select the ScreenBeam, which you can name to whatever the name of the conference room is. You enter the PIN. Once you enter the PIN, the ScreenBeam will remember that profile, and then you can connect seamlessly each time. For macOS and iOS, screen mirroring. So basically, it's AirPlay. You connect to the ScreenBeam you want, you enter the code, and you go. Same for Android, same for Chromebook. So we provide a method by which people are using what they already know, what they're already familiar with, to project onto the screen. Why should it be complicated? Why should, realistically, why should every meeting room they go into be a different way to connect? We don't ask that of people when connecting to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is Wi-Fi. You go in, you select from a menu of available Wi-Fi sources, you type in a code and you go. It should be the same for this. So we offer that. All right, now additionally, we have multi-view mode, and I mentioned this. And this is something that a lot of people ask for, is the ability to put 4 different screens on at one time. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly 4. It is up to 4. So here, let me show you an animation of how this looks. So the first person is connected, and by the way, this is a setting in the firmware. So you basically have to set this to multi-view mode, which enables this. But if one person is presenting, the next person will connect, and that will create 2 screens. A third person will join, and that screen will be at the bottom. And then for a fourth screen, each person will get their own quadrant, so to speak. So in that way, you can have up to 4 people collaborating and interacting at the same time. All right. Now let's talk about that HDMI input that I mentioned. That HDMI input is really pretty key as part of this new contactless space, because the idea we have here is we know that in some cases people are still going to want that HDMI cable, or maybe they have a computer in the meeting room that they use as kind of a default, or in some cases there is a problem where a person, for whatever reason, they don't have Wi-Fi on their device or something weird like that. Well, you can use that wired connection. Now in single view mode, and there's differences. There's single, there's multi-view, and there's quick switch. In multi-view and quick switch mode, it's very easy to basically jump from one device to another. When you're in single view mode, whatever's wired trumps everything else. So whatever's wired is the default on the screen. So that way, no matter how many devices try to connect, the wired device will always be the one that shows up on the screen. If you move to quick switch mode, then you can interact and connect whenever you like. So if there is a continuous wired connection, if that device is in the meeting room, anybody can come in and essentially overtake that and present from their screen. So you can do any sort of combination that you want. All right, let's talk about some deployment options and what's involved here. So essentially, in a corporate network, there is a corporate network. In a corporate network, you have one corporate network. Now, sometimes those are VLAN, they're divided, they're firewalled, etc. But there's always going to be that corporate network. Now, ScreenBeam sits in that environment, and you have a choice. You can connect to that network, or you can choose not to. You've got a dedicated Wi-Fi radio in there for Miracast. You have a second Wi-Fi radio in there that serves a multi-purpose as either connections to your network, a connection to a guest network, but also providing AirPlay support. So an Apple device or a Chrome device would connect to that second Wi-Fi radio. You also have an Ethernet port in there as well. Now, you connect that to the display, and honestly, that ScreenBeam doesn't have to be connected to anything for this to work. You don't need your corporate network or any network to enable this. All of this can be handled in the room. It's your choice. It's the choice of your customer. So, but you can choose either bridging that second Wi-Fi radio or the Ethernet port to your corporate LAN and provide employee devices a way to kind of have both. So if it's an iPhone, you can connect to your ScreenBeam, and that ScreenBeam will pass internet along the Wi-Fi while you're doing screen mirroring to the display. Now, additionally, with employee devices, you can come through the network. Now, everything I was talking about was point-to-point. So point-to-point to the ScreenBeam using devices, but it doesn't have to be point-to-point. You can also actually go through your network. You can use what's called Infracast instead of Miracast. macOS, iOS, Chromecast all use Wi-Fi anyway. So if you want, you can actually utilize your network if you have the bandwidth to support that, rather than going individually point-to-point within that organization. Now, guest devices can connect to ScreenBeam whether they have access to your individual network or not. But if you have connectivity to a guest network, you can pass internet connectivity to them without requiring those guest devices to access your corporate network. So that's a security thing, right? So you've got several different layers of what you can do here in how you connect. So either way, whether you're connecting point-to-point or you're connecting through a network, we have as many solutions available for you as you can possibly want. Now, on top of that, that's a lot to take in, but it's also important to note that we're maintaining security all along the way. So in that, there are connections, there are security levels at each turn, at all three stages. So at the connection level, where you're connecting into the device, you've got WPA2 or 802.1x. Session level is TLS and 1.2 AES, and there's an on-screen pin. So there's multiple layers for this. But additionally, I mentioned there's an Ethernet port, there's 2 Wi-Fi radios, and all of those are physically firewalled. So let's say, for instance, you have your WLAN 1 going to your guest network. There's no way that anyone can bridge over and get into the Ethernet connection of the corporate infrastructure. It just doesn't happen. So on top of that, you have, and all of your point-to-point connectivity isn't going to enable throughput there either. So essentially, we've basically tiered and threat modeled this out to make it as tight as possible. On top of that, we have additional layers of security where, let's say, for instance, you disconnect from the device or the device loses power. It actually purges the last image in memory, so that's not even recoverable. If they can find some way of trying to pull the chip buffer out and get whatever image was on that screen, there's no chance of that. Once you lose power, it's gone. All right, now I realize this is a complicated network model, but that's fine because we do add some tools that simplify the experience. Now, Microsoft has something like 10,000 ScreenBeams in use worldwide. Now, it would be crazy of us to ask them to update firmware, change device names, IP addresses, etc., individually on each one of those devices. So we couldn't imagine asking anyone to do that. So that's why we've developed a tool. And this is the CMS remote management tool. And this is actually our latest version, CMS Enterprise. And it will be releasing very shortly. And it will be available on ScreenBeam 1000, 1100, and 1100 Plus. But what this does is give you a very robust environment for accessing and administering your devices system-wide. So on top of being able to do that, there's a couple of features that I want to point out here. There's admin hierarchy. So you can actually have multiple role-based roles based on whatever the needs are. So you can have certain admins that can reboot devices and do basic scenarios. You can have super admins that can basically affect everything. But you can stage that, and you can also do it, geographically. So what are these things? What does this allow you to do? Well, it does device configuration. It does, gives you a dashboard so you can see if there's any offline devices for whatever reason. You can push out firmware updates. You can do device grouping, batch processing. So if you want to do, let's say, for instance, you have a set number of rooms that you want to push out a new background for, you can do that. Scheduled tasks, remote, reboot, and restore of firmware. custom background images, custom screensaver, the digital signage component that we talked about. You can link to whatever web page that you want to use, and you can push that out. You make changes, choose a different web page, for instance, you can push that out. You've also got logging, etc. Basically, everything that you would want to do, you can do from CMS. Now, here's the great thing, and this is something that I haven't talked about because in the next slide, I'm going to give you a comparison chart, which is actually right here. But when you look at this in comparison to some of the other products that are in the space, the ScreenBeam 1100 Plus retails for £899, €999, but that's it. Okay, we don't charge licensing fees. There's no dongles to buy. We don't even charge for our enterprise management server. If you buy a device, you get the enterprise tool for free. It's just part of the purchase. So it's a one-time cost per meeting room, and you're done. Additionally, you also get a lot of what's coming down the way. So for instance, in the 1100, we launched the 1100, and after we launched it, we updated with digital signage. So that wasn't there before. We put it in the firmware, and anyone just had to update their firmware for free, and they could add digital signage. Ghost inking, which is something I didn't talk about. Now I realize we're in a contactless environment, but sometimes you still need a touch screen. And the great thing about ScreenBeam is ScreenBeam actually utilizes that touch screen. So if you're connected with, let's say, a Windows 10 laptop, and you have a touch panel up there, any of the whiteboarding features, any of the touch features in Office 365 will just work. So if you have OneNote open, or you want to annotate a PowerPoint slide, anyone can come up there and edit with, swiping with a finger or stylus, etc. Now we've taken a step further in that we've actually patented something called ghost inking. It's only available in our technology, but it is available now. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to go up and start writing without any lag. Now this is important because we've seen this when you're doing inking with a wireless transmission, there's going to be lag because it's wireless. So there's often a gap between the presenter's fingertip and the ink line that's trailing behind them. And sometimes people have a hard time with this because they want to pause and let it catch up. What we've done is we've built in a way in which there's a light gray line that interpolates the gap between the ink and the person's finger or stylus. So they can see that the ink will complete and they can keep going. So that's a feature that we added after the fact. Again, that's available for free. And there are many others. The quick switch and the 4 screens were added after launch. So we keep adding value to this. The ScreenBeam 11 Plus is no different. We've launched this because, number one, it gave it a slimmer profile. It was also important to do the HDMI in, so you basically have an automatic switcher there. But also, we've improved the processor and we've added a lot more RAM because this platform will enable some really significant features that are coming along in the next year. I can't really talk about it in any detail, unfortunately, because it's still under wraps. But believe me, when you're looking at this, you're going to get a lot of capability in this that's not expected. And so you can.
And Brett, by the way, sorry to interrupt. Someone is asking about are we coming with some unified communication anytime soon? And I mean that's in the center of our intentions for the near future. And
that's a great question, David. Are we looking at including unified communications? Well. We're going to be doing a lot of exciting things this year. Please stay tuned.
Yes, exactly. And for those who were attending ISE or reading the news from ISE, we had some technology previews showcased by then, and things are progressing in that direction. So as Brett said, please stay tuned for very interesting things.
Absolutely. But even so, as I said, I mean, you look at our price point in comparison to our competitors, and again, all of these things that will come will be available in the box. So it's a firmware update, and it works. So on the performance for value ratio, we're really pretty high in what we're doing. So just to follow up with that, ScreenBeam Plus is a great enabler for contactless meeting spaces. Now, I know in some cases, every organization will be different. Some cases, touchscreens will be okay, some they won't, but we enable those. We enable converting non-traditional spaces into safe meeting spaces. We enable digital signage. We enable, essentially what we do is we try to give as many options to AV resellers and to end users, corporate end users, education end users. You talked about the fact that we have a solution specifically for education, but we have all of these tools as additional tools in the tool belt of any organization, trying to figure out what's best for their environment in this new world we live in. So it is this device, the 1100 Plus, is one box for all, no apps, no dongles, or in-room PC required. It is multi-network, it's adaptable, and it's secure. And we have loads of features packed into it, and loads of features coming. So just be aware that this will launch late August timeframe, I think is about the best time for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, David. And
No, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, so I was going to say silence is agreement. So August, David and I have just received our initial units, and we've both been very pleased with the performance and the capabilities and of what these can do. So we're really excited about this because and it's kind of thing, we love what we do. We love our product because it just works and it's reliable. And it's very exciting to be able to come and talk to people about a product that just does what it says it's going to do. So we're excited about this, and we hope that if you have an opportunity to join InfoComm Connected, which is June 16th to 18th, we'll be there virtually. And for more information, here are our contacts. So if you don't feel like answering a question during the course of this webcast, you can certainly reach out to any one of us at any time, or follow us on Twitter at ScreenBeam. And David, I know we're bumping up against the end. I just wanted to make sure if there was any questions in the queue that didn't get answered.
I'm reviewing that right now, and I believe so. We do have a few questions about the new CMS. So what is the technology behind the new CMS? So it's web-based. You can host it on your own server. It's not a cloud. It's not a cloud. So you have to host it. Correct me, Brett, if you want to add some more information on that. And it's already available from our website if you want to try it. From our support website. And someone is also asking, is it going to be available for ScreenBeam 960? Not at the moment, and not at the moment. Maybe later on as an option, possibly, but not so far.
No, that's a good point, David. The enterprise version is currently available for 1000, 1100, and 1100 plus. And there are a few design reasons behind that, but we may look at it as a potential add-on down the road if we configure some things.
Yep.
Is that all we have left, David?
Yes. someone, yeah, we have someone asking about the comparison with Air Server Connect. I'm not specifically familiar with Air Server Connect, but
well, actually that one. There's a lot of players to keep up with. Typically, what we find is our key differentiator, and I can't speak specifically to this product, but I find our key differentiator is one. We've been developing for Miracast longer than anybody else. I mean, we were a key development partner for Intel when it was WiDi, and then we moved to Microsoft when it was Miracast. And honestly, we've been working with Microsoft on this technology since Windows 8, so quite a long while. And so we really know Miracast. It's not something that's actually super easy to do. So we're really far along in the development of that. Additionally, so that's one thing that sets us apart. Oftentimes, other technologies require you to use the existing network. The other piece that we tend to differentiate ourselves from others is the AGO mode I mentioned, which means you get to set the channel at whatever level you want to ensure that you have the clearest signal possible in however noisy an environment. And those are typically the two big differentiators at a technological level that set us apart. So like I said, I'll have to do some research on that particular product, but generally that's where we shine.
Someone also asking about the mounting behind LCD screen, if the radio field strength is strong enough. I'm not aware of any issue of that side. If the person asking has a specific issue, please reach out to us. We can look into it.
Just to touch on that, David. Honestly, there are VESA mounts on the back of on the bottom of the device, but also we include a magnetic bracket. So if the back panel of the display happens to be metal, you can just stick it back there. But honestly, customers tuck ScreenBeam behind the display all the time. And to give you an example of how robust the networking is, I used to basically play games when I'm at trade shows, and we all know how crazy the Wi-Fi noise is at trade shows. But essentially, I would connect to ScreenBeam and I would walk, 16, 18 meters away and have no problem with my signal. So these radios are pretty powerful. Now, if you're going to stick it inside a metal cabinet or something like that, that might be a problem. But tucking it back behind the display, there's almost no, unless it's a 150-inch display and you're tucking it dead center, I can't imagine it would be a problem. Good question, though.
And I think we are. I think we are good with questions. Yeah, I think, let me check. Yeah.
Okay, great, David. Well, if that's the case, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. But again, capture our email addresses on this last slide here. And if you have any questions, email us. We're always happy to answer any questions. If you want to have a conversation to know more, we'll be happy to give you a call. If you want us, if you are a reseller and want some help discussing our technology with your customers, we can do that too. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you, and stay safe. Use ScreenBeam in your meeting rooms to avoid touching any cables. Bye-bye.